D&D at the end of the day is just a game. But as a DM, with the amount of work that you put in, whether you're preparing for the game or you're running the game, you want it to be more than just silly encounters and a bunch of memes. You give them a quest, but do they actually care about completing the quest? Or are they just doing adventures because they're adventurers? In this video, let's talk about hooking your D&D players and trying to keep them invested for the long haul. What is up, YouTube? My name is Francis. I've been playing D&D for roughly 5-6 years now, and in today's video, I want to talk about how to make your D&D players care. This video is broken down into 3 different categories. 1, which is the campaign pitch. 2, which is the player agency. And 3 are the consequences of their actions. And let's get started. So first, let's talk about player buy-in and what happens before the session starts. Most people call this a session 0. Sometimes I do this not even in a session 0. I do this over text or whenever I see my friends. This is where I like to pitch my campaign. And during the session 0, I try to gauge with my players what are they interested in and what kind of environment do they want to experience. Personally, I think it's really important to pitch different types of games to see which, as a collective, does the party want to experience. Especially if you don't have any experience playing with a specific group, or you've been playing many different campaigns with the same group, you want to keep it fresh. It's really hard to make a general game from the beginning that pleases everyone. So what I recommend is just picking a theme and sticking with it, at least for the first few sessions. The pitch itself, it doesn't really need to be fancy. All that I did was list a bunch of vague adventures from you have been contracted to steal this item to you are locked in a mega dungeon and you need to escape. Just for reference, I'll include an old pitch document I used a few years ago in the description. But basically, I break down each pitch into 5 vague statements: a TLDR, politics, self-direction, tactics, and buy-in. A TLDR describes the campaign in a sentence or 2. Politics vaguely describe the level of RP or the level of world building that I'll have. Self-direction describes the level of player agency that we'll talk about later in this video. Tactics describes the importance of combat and just critical thinking in general. And finally, player buy-in is like a commentary from me about what to expect from this game. Each pitch should just be vague enough to where your players should have an idea of how different each game is. And then once I send it out, I let the players read it and give them a few weeks or a few days, and I'll put it up for a vote. So the second thing is player agency. To make your D&D players care, you have to give them decisions to make. This can be as intense as which NPC are they going to save, or just choosing which tavern they're going to sleep at night. To me, player agency means letting the players choose what to do, but that doesn't mean the players can do literally whatever they want. So one thing that I try to do is to put the situations in front of the players and have them react to it. This can be anywhere from random encounters to plot hooks to world building. And naturally, they will have to care because they're going to choose what they're going to be involved in. One thing I've done in the past is let the players choose between adventures with different morals. So if they take the morally gray route, we can explore that for a bit. Or if the players decide to go on quests and go on a more morally righteous path, well, we can explore that as well. And the connections that they made in those paths will translate for the rest of the campaign. My rule of thumb is that gamers and D&D players only care about one thing, and that is their characters. And for me, as the DM is supposed to be more of a facilitator for that character growth. So let them make decisions, make good decisions, make bad decisions. Let their decisions blow up in their face. Let them succeed and do something that you didn't even think about doing. Just focus more on the setting and what you're comfortable about putting in front of your players and see what they do. And speaking of decisions, let's talk about consequences. I'm not sure if this is a hot take, but my hot take is that consequences actually make D&D fun. Let's say that the players meet a very intimidating stone giant. If the players try to speak with it and try to be friendly towards it and succeeding on a few good rolls, maybe they'll make some really powerful allies. But if the party decides to attack because they see it as a threat. Maybe some other stone giants are lurking around and the party has to now fight a party of stone giants. Consequences in your players' decisions really make D&D fun, and it makes your players care about the decisions that they're making. Sounds obvious, right? But not all consequences need to be this extreme. Let's say the group is shopping for magical weapons, and the party, like they always do, they'll ask for a discount. Let's say they roll for a party discount, they rolled persuasion, and they failed. The shopkeeper says no, the party goes on their merry way, despite how bad they feel about it, and that's it. You don't need to punish them but with a mean shopkeeper or whatever. You just roll with it. Specifically, decision making like this, the idea of the player just interacting with the world that you're doing and them playing D&D, that really makes them care about your game. It's like saying if the party was stuck in a dungeon and they see a lever, are they going to pull it? Probably. Create the suspense. Make it so that your players are interested and keep that curiosity going. And speaking of making your players care about your game, make them care about what DMs do. Make them care about what DMs do by showing them this video right over here about 10 DM things that I wish that players know, and maybe, just maybe, they'll care about your stress.